Are you ready to take a test? Yes. Don't worry, it's a very short test, just 2 questions. The first question, visual reasoning. Look closely at the picture I show you next and try to identify what's missing. All right, the second question. This time, reasoning using words. Composer is to score, as architect is too. All right, time's up. Let's take a look at the answers. Did you get them right? I'm sure there are many people here tonight who did not get these correct. And if I judged you based on these IQ-style questions alone, do you think it would be a fair measure of your potential? Whether you got these correct or not says very little about how successful you are or could be in the future. Yet, these IQ-style questions are what are most commonly used to identify what we refer to as giftedness in students. But when we talk about giftedness, what do we even actually mean? Most education systems define giftedness using IQ scores. Scores above 130 or the top 2 to 5% within an age group. Why? We do this because it's measurable, and education systems tend to rely on what can be measured, data and numbers, even though they capture very specific abilities at a certain moment in time rather than long-term potential. As teachers, you will find that giving students open-ended questions and problem-solving tasks are a lot more valuable and revealing. I'm sure you're all familiar with the egg drop challenge. The concept is very simple. Protect the egg with materials so that the egg doesn't crack when dropped from a height. But when I give this task to my students, I am least interested in whether the egg survives or not. I'm observing how my students approach the task, and you'll see them adopt many different strategies. Armor builders will wrap the egg heavily. Others focus on cushioning with shock absorption. Parachute thinkers try to slow the fall. Some students get frustrated, give up, and allow other group members to take over. And often, you'll have an outside-the-box thinker who asks, "Teacher, can we just boil the egg first?" Those behaviors, how students try, fail, adapt, and delegate, those are real clues to future achievement and success. Having high IQ is absolutely worth celebrating. But when we focus on standardized tests alone, are we missing the potential for gifted behaviors in many other students? In the 1970s, Joseph Renzulli, an educational psychologist and theorist, asked himself, what is it exactly that produces extraordinary output? He challenged the dominant view of giftedness, which at the time was seen as synonymous with IQ. Through studying biographies and the lives of well-known figures, he observed that many people who achieved fame and notoriety in a field were not necessarily the highest scoring students in the class. So he wrote an article which proposed that giftedness is not a fixed label, but rather a set of behaviors which emerge through the interaction of 3 clusters of traits: above average ability, creativity, and task commitment. Above average ability can mean different things in different areas: math, art, mechanical skill. It's not just about performance on tests. Creativity, the ability to have new, flexible approaches to thinking. And task commitment is focused energy, perseverance, and the ability to do the hard, sometimes even boring work to turn an idea into something real. He framed this as situational, meaning it happens in certain people, at certain times, under certain circumstances, even in people who we already consider gifted. And he put this into context using 3 well-known figures. Einstein struggled in school and had speech delays. Steve Jobs dropped out of college. And Richard Branson was dyslexic and labeled as lazy in school. Yet, at different points throughout their lives, each produced transformative work in their field. So, if gifted behaviors depend on conditions, not labels, we have to ask if placing students in accelerated or extra academic classes really leads to long-term success, or are we missing something more important? When giftedness isn't fixed, the goal shifts from doing more work to creating the right conditions. And in the right conditions, potential can become something real. Research shows that 30 to 60% of brain wiring is influenced by genetics, while the other 40 to 70% is influenced by our experiences and our environment. In other words, who you are isn't written in your DNA alone. Your genetics provide the blueprint, but your environment helps build the structure. Both matter in developing the brain. When I first worked with Renzulli's rings, I was working very closely with 2 students at the time. And this gave me a practical framework for designing their learning, not to create giftedness, but to help bring these rings together so that my students could achieve their full potential. Because these traits are not prerequisites or inputs. They are traits that can be developed through effective teaching and learning. My first student, amazing ability in science. By age 7, he could explain weather systems and chemical reactions in depth. Highly creative, always drawing, sketching, even when he shouldn't be. But on paper, he was failing every single written exam. He had not got the task commitment to follow through with any literacy activities. His strong passion for science meant he completely disengaged from literacy lessons in class. We had to find a way to link his passion for science to his literacy so that he could develop those basic skills and develop task commitment to persevere with his tasks. When we link learning to something meaningful, the brain releases dopamine, which supports the hippocampus, the brain's memory engine, helping us to encode and retain new information. It doesn't just make learning more enjoyable, but changes how the brain works. My second student, totally different. He had amazing ability across all subject areas, and he was highly dedicated with his work. But when it came to creativity, he struggled. When a question did not match the pattern he had been taught, he froze. And any projects that required improvisation stalled. You can see the gap. With him, we needed to work on new flexible approaches to thinking and developing multiple solution pathways. Research shows that beyond a certain level of intelligence, it is factors like motivation, resilience, and attitudes towards learning that matter most for reaching true expertise. As parents, teachers, even our students, we often focus heavily on outcomes, but real progress also looks like students building character and discovering their passions, even if that growth never shows up on a spreadsheet. Giftedness isn't a fixed label. It is something that emerges when we design learning around what makes us human. Thank you.